Last principle for us to consider is the principle of liking. We prefer to say yes to those we know and like. No surprise there. Here's where we can get some traction from the influence process. We like people who are like us, that is, who exhibit similarities, who do like us and complement us in the process, right? And who cooperate with us toward common goals. Okay, let's take each of these. Similarities. We like people who are like us. When I was learning how to sell automobiles, we were told if somebody comes into the showroom with the express purpose of trading in an old car for a new one, when you look at that used car, don't just look for dents and rust spots and wear on the tires. Look for evidence of who this person is. Are there golf balls on the back seat? Camping equipment in the trunk? Is there a ski rack on the roof? And if so, when you get that individual in your office, say, gee, I hope the weather holds for the weekend because I'd love to get in 18 holes of golf. How about you? Do you golf? You do? Really? Me too. And then there's a bond. They started to form a bond. Same thing with compliments. When I was learning how to sell insurance, we were told if you go to a couple's home and you meet them outside, compliment the landscaping. If you meet them inside, compliment the decor. If a child goes by, compliment the kid. Whatever is prominent in the situation, praise it. Because people are tremendous suckers for flattery. It turns out, research shows that praise is the only information that's just as successful when it's false as when it's true. We believe people who give us phony compliments as much as those who give us genuine ones, and we like them equally. So people are vulnerable to that. And there's no question that that will work in this smuggler kind of approach, but there's a real loss associated with the smuggler's approach. And that is, if an agent of influence, if, let's say, I want to influence you, and I invent a similarity between us, I lose the opportunity to find a similarity which would cause me to like you as well as you to like me. And if I manufacture a compliment, I've lost the opportunity to find something genuinely admirable about you, and once again, I'm less likely to like you as a consequence. And I'll claim that the single thing that's most likely to cause individuals to say yes in the context of liking is not that they like us, it's that they recognize that we like them. When I want to decide whether to follow your recommendations, there's no ready reason why I should follow your proposals just because I like you. But believe me, there is a ready reason if I know you like me. Then I can exhale because you're going to take care of me. That's what we do for the people we like. So our job is not so much to get others to like us. It's to come to like the people we are dealing with, and when they see that, the walls come down. And they are willing to accept our recommendations, and they'll be good recommendations because we really do take care of the people we like. Everybody wins again. Last thing for me to talk about, and that's the principle of cooperation and how it works to cause people to like one another. We like the people with whom we cooperate toward common goals, mutual purposes. It's so easy to forget that when we're dealing with people, sometimes in an adversarial relationship, we always have common goals. We have to identify those and, like a detective, bring them to the surface so everybody can see them. Let me give you an example and I'll finish. A few years ago, I belonged to a health club here in the Phoenix area that I liked a lot because it was located halfway between my home and my office. I could get there in either direction. My friends were there. It wasn't expensive. It didn't have a lot of things I didn't participate in, so I wasn't paying for these extras I wouldn't use. It was well run, very well kept, well managed. I liked this place. Well, I went to do a workout one morning, and we live in Phoenix, and so I was there in a t-shirt and some running shorts, and I didn't even have pockets, so I had my wallet and my keys in my hand, and I opened the trunk to my car to get out my gym bag, and for some reason I had my keys in my wallet in that same hand, and I put them down, and I took out my gym bag and closed the trunk lid, and immediately said, "Oh, Cialdini, now you've locked yourself out of your car. You're going to have to go inside and mildly embarrass yourself by saying that you've locked your keys in your car and make a phone call to get your other set of keys." So I went inside, and the assistant manager was sitting behind the desk, doing something with towels. Have you ever noticed this? They're always doing something with towels. Anyway, so I said to him, Paul, and his name was right on his shirt. This is a guy I had met. I don't think I ever said more than hello to him in the quarters, but I had passed him for the last 2 or 3 years. I was a member, nodded to him. So I thought he knew who I was. I said, "Paul, I feel embarrassed about this. I just locked myself out of my car. I don't even have a quarter to make a phone call at your pay phone, but I see you have a phone behind the desk that's free, and I'd like to use that to get my other set of keys." And he said, "No." Now, for service people, you must be getting close to spasms at this point. I said, and I had the same reaction. "What do you mean, no? I'm a member. You know me. I've been here for 3 years. I've always been paying my dues every month, and now my car's here, and I don't have a quarter. I don't have my keys." And he said, "Well, I'm afraid you don't understand, sir." He said, "That phone is for the use of our staff only. And in fact, I allowed one of our members to use it last week. She abused the privilege. She was on for 35 minutes. One of our salespeople says he thinks he lost a couple of pieces of business. And my manager says, I can't allow people to use that phone anymore. I'm sorry." And he turned away and started doing things with towels again. And I was incensed. What? I've been paying my dues all this time, and now I'm in a fix, and you won't let me use this free phone? You've just lost a customer. And I said, "Here's my membership card." I slid it across the desk, and with great bravado, I turned on my heels, and I stomped out. And where was I? I was in the parking lot. And I was worried before about mildly embarrassing myself. Now I'm mortified because I have to panhandle for quarters on the street to make my phone call. So the lose-lose situation. We've talked about the win-win situation. This is the lose-lose situation that I arranged for myself. I'm out of the place where I really want to be. They've lost a customer. Suppose I had taken my own advice here about raising to consciousness the fact that we were cooperating partners in this endeavor. We both wanted the same thing. We wanted me to be happy in a place that ran well, that when their salespeople got a call they could answer, and so on. What if I had, instead of doing what I did, said, "Paul, I've just locked myself out of my car. How can we cooperate to get me my keys?" Suppose I had done that. Suppose I had taken the concept of cooperation, which was really there, and raised it to the surface. How can we cooperate to get me my keys? What could he have said? What could he have offered? What in the space of a second and a half, I've just heard 3 answers that were vastly better than the one that I chose. He could have made the call for me. He could have given me a quarter. I like that he could have lent me a quarter. He could have lent me that money. I would have made my call, gotten my wallet, and given him his 25 cents back. He wouldn't have been out a cent. But you wouldn't have been able to get me out of that place with a crowbar after that. But I didn't. And you know what? He didn't either. And that's one of the things we need to train our people to recognize, is the essence of the cooperative character of our interactions with our customers and clients. We want the same thing, even when on the surface we seem to be pulling in different directions. Neither of us did. And you know why neither of us did? For the same reason, I'm afraid, that you won't be able to use any of these principles that we've just talked about. In the heat of that moment, in the sweep of those events, I, who studies this stuff, couldn't even remember what to do. There's too much information. Look, how are you going to remember in a week what this guy Cialdini was talking to us about for an hour and a half in Phoenix? You're going to say, oh yeah, that's right. He had 6 principles. There was liking, and there was reciprocity, and there was Donner, and Blitzen, and Sneezy, and Grumpy. You can't remember this. I see a number of you have been taking notes on your workbooks. What are you going to do, hang that on a chain around your neck? Can't do it. Can't do it. So here's what I'm going to offer instead. For each of you, as you leave for the break, I have prepared a little laminated plastic card with the 6 principles of influence on it. And I'm going to ask you to take that 30 seconds that we talked about earlier. When you come upon an influence situation, you want to be more effective there. Take a half step back, review what's available to you there. But here's what I figure. You do the same for me, right? So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Bob, thank you so much. I think we'll all value those little cards. I know I will, because I've heard Bob speak, and it is hard to remember those 6, but they're incredibly useful ideas. We have some good time here for some question and answer with Bob, and what I'd like to do is ask our people with mics they're in the aisles there. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand, and I'll acknowledge you, and you'll get a mic, or raise your hand right now if you have a question, and they'll start bringing the mics around.
Thank you. Charlie Tombazian from Avnet. And you hit a nerve with me with the car buying process. So instead of the concessions that salespeople typically do, which is ask for the higher price and then come down, what are you recommending to them to alter their process?
Well, I think that they need to be, to alter their process, they need to provide the range of options that are available so that they can show you all of the options and make sure that you are aware of each of these various possibilities so that you don't get stuck down in some place where it may not be optimal for you.
Do we have another question? Way in the back.
Do you think your principle at the beginning with the Boy Scouts, where start big and then go small, does that in any way conflict with the consensus of get people going in the right direction, start small, then go big? How do you reconcile those two?
Yeah, that's a very good question. What we're saying is one way to be successful in getting people to say yes is to begin with a larger request. If they say no, retreat to the smaller one. Another way is to get people to take a small step in your direction and then advance to a larger request. I think it turns out that they're not incompatible with one another except procedurally. They are driven by two different psychological principles. One is the desire to reciprocate. The other is the desire to be consistent with what one has already done. But the evidence suggests that the more powerful strategy is to start with the larger request and retreat. You get more people who will say yes to that moderate request if you start here and then move to it than if you start down here and move to it. There's actually been research on that.
Bob Boskamp with Tour Guide USA. All the principles on paper are equal. What measurement, or do you have some gauge of personalities that take those principles and differentiate the effectiveness of the principles based on certain personalities?
This is a good point, and yeah, it's a good thing that there are 6 principles because not everybody responds to all of them. So we can move around among them if there are people who don't especially respond to the idea of scarcity or don't especially respond to the idea of authority. That's fine. We can still move them in our direction by using one or another of the others. As far as personalities, you can get to know individuals and recognize what they're more inclined toward and then be ready to find those principles where they generally exist in the environment. But another thing you can do is to try to identify certain features of people that would incline them in one direction or another. How many of you here in the audience will sometimes deal with individuals who were not born or raised in this culture, born from someplace else? Okay, in modern society, that's almost all of us. There's research to show now that depending on a person's background, national background, they will respond differentially to one or another of these principles. If you look in your workbook, you'll see at the back a set of slides that describes the outcomes of a study. So you don't need to look right now, I'll tell you what they are, but you've got them there. A study done by Citibank, which has locations all over the world. They went to 4 different kinds of cultures and asked their employees the following question. If one of your coworkers came to you with a request to help out on a big project that would take you away from your duties and take time and energy away from your own focus, under what circumstances would you feel most willing to say yes to that request? All right? Here's what they found. In the United States, Canada, and UK, the answer was, I would ask myself, what has this person done for me recently? If the answer was, this person has helped me, then I have to help. I am obligated by the rule for reciprocity. Right? In the Far East, in Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, there was a different answer. The question was, is this requester connected to someone in my small group, especially a senior member of my small group? Here the rule for authority played the biggest role because out of loyalty to one's superiors, you have to say yes to someone who is connected to that person.
We have a question over here.
Well, I'm not quite finished.
I'm sorry.
There's 2 more. 2 more cultures.
Sorry?
In the Mediterranean cultures, Italy, Spain, Greece, and I would think it would apply to Central and South America, the Americas, South America. The answer was, is this requester connected to my friends? So here it was the liking principle that was most powerful. And then in Germany and the Scandinavian countries, there was an entirely different question that they asked themselves. It was, according to the rules and regulations of this organization, am I supposed to say yes? So you can see how knowing the background of the individual that you're talking to can change entirely the kind of approach that you make to that individual, connecting yourself to a leader or a friend or so on. The fortunate thing is that all of these principles work in all of those cultures. It's just that the priorities, the weights assigned to these principles may change from culture to culture.
Robert, first of all, let me congratulate you on a great presentation. I have to say, I didn't think I would like it when I first started to listen to you, but I've enjoyed it. As you know, online service companies such as Yahoo and Classmates and so on are beginning to charge for what used to be free. And success rates are, fairly low right now. What strategies do you recommend to persuade consumers to pay for something that used to be free?
Yeah. I think you have to use the scarcity principle here by providing what is provided that you can't have if you don't stay with us or move in our direction. There is value for what we are now charging for. It's not that we're just exploiting the situation. There are things here, unique features that you can't get anywhere else, and that's worth it. That's a worthy exchange.
We have one more question?
Hi, I'm Rob Levitt from ITSMA. Wondering how you apply some of these principles to sort of large business-to-business environments where you're dealing with long processes, large groups of people that you're trying to sell to or market to.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a problem with that, but in that we're still dealing, even though it's business to business, it is people within those businesses, and so we can still strum those same interpersonal strings that we all resonate to. But I think especially powerful there is the idea of commitment and cooperate, those two principles. Commitment to common goals and a mutual enhancement of both sides. And raising that to the surface, finding ways to assure that that's the goal for both sides, not one exploiting the other, but a mutual trust there. That's the way to solidify those partnerships and be sure that we can leverage them into the future.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much.
Okay.